Hello and welcome. I'm Adri Gregan, and I am finally back from more Vinland Saga. It's been like a month, and I am sorry for that. And for those of you who are watching Freerun and watching this also, I guess, also sorry for that delay, even though I've gotten to Freerun a little bit more recently. I was hoping that that would kind of be my comeback, but it seems I underestimated my struggles and overestimated my abilities to overcome them at the time. Regardless, here I am, and I won't say I'm back, same thing with Freerun, but I hope to be back. And I hope you'll take this video as a sign that I am still trying, and I have no intent to vacate Vinland Saga, as it were. Regardless, I'll make a longer video about what's going on and what's going to change about the channel moving forward, and that'll come there, so I won't waste your time here for that. What I am here for, of course, is Vinland Saga, and we're here with episode 3. And last time was a really interesting episode for a lot of reasons. We obviously got a lot more about Thorfinn and his village, and we also got a lot more about Thors, of course, the father figure of the village, which is the trope that some known elucidated me on in the comments. I don't know if it's like officially or not, but it's one that, as he described it, I really appreciated, and I think fits a lot more than the gentle giant, as mentioned in episode 1's comments. Basically going into this just because I guess in lieu of the him being in the comment spotlight, well, he's going to be there anyways, spoilers, but regarding his comment there, basically the father figure being the strict uh, yet kind overseer who has experienced violence and trauma and thus tries to avoid or keep his children, his descendants, those he is taking care of, out of that same path of bloodshed, right? Or of trauma, or whatever it was. They've basically experienced life and they will do whatever they can to either make sure the people that under their tutelage do not experience the same, or that they can do so in a way that is less damaging, right? So that's the father figure. A not, I was gonna say a gentle giant, but we already had that conversation. But a giant who is gentle and has experienced that which he does not wish upon those he looks over, he watches over. And I like that. I like that. I think the father figure in that case as a trope is perfect, and I think it fits him very well. Now, there were plenty of other things that happened last time, from introducing and starting to get to know Floki, who seems much more battle ready and almost salivating at the mouth to re-engage in combat and war, which is not unusual for him. We also see a lot of the villagers who are more than excited for it. More on that in the comment spotlights, which is soon to come. But Loki in particular seems quite an interesting character and quite an understandable, I suppose, antagonist it seems that he's shaping out to be, given the cliffhanger of last episode. Though it could always be a fake out, who knows? But given his position as the head of a group of incredibly powerful warriors who even the state seems to be afraid of, I believe it mentioned that they don't even pay taxes, it feels very shogunate from the mid. Well, I was gonna say a certain century of Japan, but it was really 2, or I think it was 3 centuries of when the shogunate ruled over Japan, and the emperor was basically just a figurehead. That's generally what happens when you have a militant force who is really powerful and isn't really held in check by the government. Because in these old times, oh, especially in these old times, I should say, might really does make right, doesn't it? Because what does a state have that the military can't just point a sword at? Not much. And it's with that that I'm going to get into today's comment spotlight, or comment spotlights, we should say, because there are several different things I want to point out. Honestly, the entire comment section, while small, humble, is really good quality. There's just a lot of it that I don't have a lot to talk on, so anything within this comment, especially the highlighted one that I don't talk about, and any comments I don't bring up here, are not because of the lack of quality. It's simply because I don't have much of value to add to it. I've given this spiel before. I don't know why I'm why I'm railing you with it again. Phrasing, God. Let's get into the comment spotlights. So first and foremost is a comment by Some Known. And this was a talk about Valhalla and its I suppose not quite analogous to heaven, but a comparison to heaven, right? It's comparable in a lot of ways, even though it is vastly different and arguably so many more. But in the eyes of the people who believe in it and the people who propagate it, they really do have a lot of similarities, don't they? They're largely seen as the same, even though they're very different. At the same to their respective people, of course. So, the actual surface level of this comment, Valhalla is a heaven, basically an afterlife that is the ideal afterlife for the many of the Norse countries, the Norse culture and the Nordic cultures, right? It is a land where basically you get to eat all you want, you get to have these crazy banquets, and you also get to train under Odin's like special army for the eventual, I believe, Ragnarok. It is a land of eternal satiation and also ultimate glory, right? And that is so interesting and so obviously divergent from the heaven that, as I and most likely a lot of you are more familiar with, from Judeo Christian religions, from Christianity, from Catholicism, and a lot of those places, right? And it's not even the West. There are a lot of Eastern places that have a similar thing to heaven, right? And that's what makes Valhalla so interesting. Heaven is this place where is this land of ultimate bliss, right? You can have the meals if you want. I'm sure you can have war if you really want, but you probably can't because it also murder goes against the Ten Commandments, right? Let's hone in on, I suppose, Christianity. So theoretically, heaven you can have whatever you want, but you're also limited by sins, by not being able to commit sin, right? Valhalla, you have this place that is not a utopia in the purest sense of the word, a world free of sin and of ultimate pleasure, but a world where your worldly desires from wherever you it was you grew up and lived your life are ultimately satisfied. And as I was saying before, to the respective peoples who aspired to each of these afterlives, they effectively inhabit the same, or they create the same image, right? This land that is unattainable, and yet you devote your entire life to reaching it. Now, to get a little less romantic. And for those of you who are very religious or very sensitive, I recommend you sit down and be uncomfortable because that's part of life. Or you can click off or click ahead into my timestamps. I have them all listed below. But I'm going to talk about religion, and this is going to be from a historian's perspective, and also as a, I suppose you could say, a cynic's perspective. I'm going to be talking about religion as a tool to manipulate and to control the masses, basically. And I suppose I should always start off a discussion like this with disclaimers. I am not denouncing religion. I am not calling religion bad or stupid or wrong. And I'm certainly not calling anyone wrong for taking part in religion or even in respecting religion. I respect it greatly. And I respect the people even more because it is such an incredibly powerful and heartwarming thing to see how many people's lives, or how much better how many people's lives have gotten because of religion. It really can be the light in the dark for so many people, and that cannot and should not be understated. With that having been said, I think two things can exist simultaneously. It can be genuinely good in a lot of ways, and it can also be used, and I would argue, have been created for a lot of bad things. So let's start with heaven, specifically the Christian heaven. Heaven is obviously this idyllic place, right? This place without sin, this place of bliss, this place where the sinners don't reach and all the good Christians reach. So they get to spend time with you, and you get to spend time with God, with the angels, doing whatever you want as long as it's not sinful. It is this place in a world that already has abundance to a degree, right? With Europe and a lot of Asia, it has the abundance that something like the Nordic countries don't have. Now, Nordic countries certainly don't have a monopoly on conflict and on war and on taking resources from each other. But comparing the two cultures, it's not hard to see why conflict is something that is not highlighted in an idyllic world in in a lot of Western places, right? On the other hand, Valhalla is something that seems to more directly represent what the people who created it, I'm presuming, wanted out of it. It is a place of conflict, a place of satiation in a world where conflict is inevitable, as is starvation. Now, you may be asking, why would they need to uh, put conflict and having full stomachs on a pedestal? If conflict is inevitable and people obviously want to eat, then that should come naturally. You shouldn't need religion to like weaponize that. Then, for the most part, I agree with that. I would say Valhalla is not to present these things and say, like, you should be following this instead of what you're doing. They're going to war anyways. They're trying to feed their stomachs anyways. I think instead, this is something that allows the rulers to make their populaces not just begrudging participants, but eager ones, right? If the afterlife is a place where you will never want for food, and war is the ultimate pleasure, is the ultimate end goal, that there could be nothing better than that, all of a sudden the necessity of conflict, of fighting each other, of gaining resources, of defeating the enemy, stops being about survival and changes into an active pursuit of the ideal. It becomes positive reinforcement, right? Praising something rather than punishing the opposite. And that's always a stronger motivator. Not always, but in most cases, that is a stronger motivator. Positive reinforcement creates that internal locus of control, that internal desire, that internal motivation, rather than an external one of fearing punishment or fearing getting raided, right? It stops being dog eat dog and becomes the more you war, the better you will be in the next life, the eternal life. And I think that's so interesting. The Nordic countries, the Nordic cultures, which have this much harsher, much less forgiving climate and sociopolitical landscape than somewhere, say, Europe, has this has its central religion, I should say, with an afterlife that, just like the Christian heaven, exists mainly for morale, right? Valhalla exists for morale, to make people bring up their swords in glee when a boat comes in and a warmongering Floki arrives and tells people that we're going to war. Everyone cheers. They don't just say, we have to do this. They say, get out of my way. I'm getting on that boat first. And there is a world of difference between those two. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about, I want to double back on before moving on from this comment, is the differences between the two cultures, Nordic and, I guess, European, for lack of a better term. I mentioned before that obviously the Nordic countries do not have any sort of monopoly. They do not solely own a harsh living condition, a kill or be killed world, a world of conflict, of warring states. But what they do have, or what they lack, I should say, that Europe has, is resources. Resources are the center point of war, right? And 99% of the cases, it is what causes war. In Nordic countries and Sweden and Finland and Iceland, resources are hard to come by, right? On the other hand, when you have Europe and you have the Middle East, you have the Fertile Crescent. You have the land that would eventually house Great Britain, the strongest military and industrial power for centuries. That doesn't happen by accident. This place is fertile. This place has resources, abundant resources. Maybe not Valhalla abundant, but enough so that the afterlife doesn't have to center around this battle for the basic needs of survival. Instead, it becomes the one that we most often see in war, which is greed, which is about having more than the other person, right? It's about having more resources, not having enough. Whereas in the Nordic places, it's about having enough. And I would argue that that distribution of resources, that unequal distribution of resources between these two cultures, these two areas, is why these central religions diverge so much. And I think Valhalla and Heaven are such a fascinating example of that. And that's just really cool. So thank you, Sumdun, for leaving this comment. And I look forward to seeing in the story more about Valhalla, more about this culture, and potentially making more of these comparisons. The other comment I really wanted to bring up in this comment spotlight is the one by Ketch here. And it's a much shorter one than some knowns, but no less interesting and no less thought provoking. As he says here, in true tragedy fashion, I think Thorfinn will follow the same progression as his father, Thors, who cannot prevent that future, as you cannot change someone else's mind if they are unwilling to listen. I wonder if Thorfinn can break the cycle if he has kids. Now, I'm obviously not speaking from a lot of experience. I haven't watched a lot of this show yet, so I can't comment too much on Thorfinn, though I like to think I know a good bit about Thors by now. Even then, I should take that back because I really don't know much about his past. I don't think anyone does at this point in the story. Anyone but people in the story. You know what I mean. The point is, what I'm going to be talking about is largely in generals and with certain assumptions that I think I have to make in order to comment on this. So, what do we have between Thorfinn and Thors? Well, we have Thors, who is the father figure trope, right? And we have Thorfinn, who looks up and really idolizes his father. Thorfinn clearly has fully drunk the Kool-Aid about the Nordic beliefs and the desire to reach Valhalla. Even just last episode, when he was told he can't come along because he's like freaking 3 months old, he was incredibly upset, right? He wasn't even playing with the kids as he used to. He was being a lot more violent. He dug through his father's stuff and found that dagger, that blade that I think we're going to see a lot of in the show. And I've got this really bad feeling that he's not going to take this decision lying down. He's defiant, right? And he's fully ready to follow in his father's footsteps, both metaphorically and literally. Even though Thors, as the father figure trope, doesn't want him to, because Thors has gone down that road. He's created those bloody footprints, right? And the fact that he is now living a peaceful life outside of war, completely removed from it, despite being well known and being infamous among the militant groups, right? As Floki was saying, the fact that he's living a peaceful life right now feels very telling. If he really loved that wartime life, why isn't he in it now? Now, you could argue he already served his time. He's already guaranteed to get into Valhalla, so he doesn't need to do any more. But as we discussed, this isn't a matter of reaching a certain threshold, right? It is instilled that war is good, that glory is good. So rather than reaching a point where you've definitely made it into Valhalla, the idea of Valhalla ingrains in you that the more you train in your life, the better prepared you will be to assist Odin, right? Who wouldn't want that? And yet, Thors clearly doesn't want that. If you ask me, the natural conclusion of this is that Thors doesn't love the path he's walked, and he doesn't want Thorfinn to do the same. That's most likely why he told Thorfinn, "You have no enemies, right? You should have no enemies." Something that I can already tell is going to be a central theme of the story. I suppose minor spoilers for season 2. I know that that became a famous line in the anime community when season 2 was coming out. And no wonder, it's powerful. It's also telling. You have no enemies. You have nobody that you should find pleasure in killing. Nobody you should seek out to kill. You should not kill, but you should not seek out death. Sadly, those words don't seem to have reached Thorfinn's ears, and I think, as Kesh mentioned here, he's going to have to learn it himself. Because Thorfinn's not really special for that, right? There really isn't any lesson one can truly learn from others. unfortunately. We learn this on a societal scale as history rhymes and sometimes even repeats itself. We don't really do good at learning the mistakes of others. We have to make the mistakes ourselves. Because that's just how it works, right? Learning from your mistakes isn't solely a cognitive experiment, it's a holistic experience, right? You need to feel the mistake with your mind, your body, your soul, because only then do you truly understand the gravity of the mistake. And I'm using the word mistake fairly flippantly. Obviously, it's just shorthand for the sake of argument. But you really need to feel the mistake in all of its weight, right? You need to truly understand it to really learn from it and really embrace it. And you just can't do that from a textbook, from stories, from even your father who you idolize. Now, this isn't to say that there's no point trying to help other people from walking down a path you think would be bad for them, right? Trying to educate and trying to educate, really, the next generation, right? If you've made mistakes, I'm not saying it's futile to tell them don't do this. But what I am saying is that the lessons that are most deeply learned are learned by the individual. And the lessons that they may learn from another needs to be as a willing receiver. It doesn't matter how much you want to teach somebody something, lessons or otherwise, if they don't want to learn. A thought that comes to mind is of My Hero Academia. And really outside of it, of course, because in My Hero Academia, there's this repeated idea that you can't save somebody unless they want to be saved. It's an idea that kind of goes against a lot of our heroistic tendencies and the tropes in our stories, but it's true, isn't it? At the end of the day, you can't save somebody unless they reach their hand out as well. You can start, they can be unwilling at the first part, but in order for that to go through, communication's a two-way street. Because otherwise, if you just grab somebody unwilling and save them throughout their life, you're gonna have to let go eventually, right? And when you let go, if they're unwilling, what's gonna happen? Right back down. That's why they need to be willing. Whether it's being saved, whether it's being taught, whether it's learning lessons, either in the classroom or in life. They have to be a willing participant. They have to be willing to listen. And Thorfinn simply isn't. Not due to any fault of his own. Ironically, because the person he's not listening to is a person he idolizes a little too much. Words are stronger than actions, right? So, when weighing Thor's words of "you have no enemies" with his actions of the glory he's attained over his life to reach Valhalla, it's really hard to blame Thorfinn for which he chooses to inherit, which footprints he chooses to follow. And it's on that note that I'm going to end off this comment spotlights and the prep with it. If you want to be in the next one, by the way, go ahead, leave your comments. I read every single one. And if it's really good and it's something that I really want to comment on, then I'll present it in the next episode. But as you can see, I heart every single one of them. And if I've hearted it, then I've read it. And if I haven't hearted it, I probably just haven't gotten to it yet. So yeah, I really hope to see your comments there because I love participating in these discussions. It's so, so valuable. And it really does make this experience like nothing else. It's so much more powerful to watch these shows with this community. Maybe not literally alongside you on the couch, but through this means of YouTube, I get to watch this, I get to share my thoughts, you get to share your thoughts, and I get to respond to them. And we get to have this discussion, right? That's so much more active and engaging than, say, a discussion board. So, yeah, I really, really hope to see you down there, and perhaps I'll see you in the next comment spotlight. But with all that having been said, let's get into the episode. Oh, one final thing before I get started. If you want the full unaltered version of this, it's full either way. If you want the unaltered version of this, it's going to be on Patreon. I do have to alter the visuals and the audio for copyright, but the Unaltered is on Patreon for $2 a month. You get access to all my stuff. But that's pretty much all the housekeeping. So let's go ahead and hop into Vinland Saga, Season 1, Episode 3. Long, long last. Troll. In reference to Thors, of course, and also this guy whose name I forgot. But Loki has told him to go out and kill Thors, who Loki invited to join in the battle. So I assume this is either something that's used to make Thors stronger, or it's because Loki is not happy with recruiting him, because it was not his decision. Yeah. Over 15. Wow. Yeah, come on. The statute of limitations has to have... Obviously not. But yeah, why have you not killed him yet? So many questions. He's a mercenary. Probably looks bad. As you said, he's a hero. I mean, it looks a lot better if... Right, when they were throwing stuff at... Absolutely nothing shady about this. Figures. Yeah, Floki's not the kind of person I would mess with, but this guy clearly knows what he's doing as a mercenary. Who is that? It slipped. That's quite the slip. Goodness. Yeah, this guy's definitely not playing around. Floki's not someone to be messed with, but neither is he, and Loki knows it. People who smile the most are the ones to be feared. Like a monster. Answer to both questions. I'm sure you're not underestimating him just because he hasn't been in war for 15 years. Maybe he's gauging Thor's strength. Yeah, of course. Of course. No surprise there. Oh. Oh, that gave me chills. I'm not even kidding. That's... I assume that was a man Floki had planted there. He's wearing the same capes, right? So many layers to that interaction. So cool. I like this opening. I wouldn't say I love it, but... I mean, it does a good job setting the atmosphere, right? It's just... a little bit on the simpler end. Also, yeah, that's... Wait... Why is Thorfinn with... I probably shouldn't read too much into that, right? That's where openings walk the line between teasing something and potentially spoiling it. But also, I don't care if it spoils events. I'm more interested in what's behind the events. But that makes me wonder if they'll actually kill Thors and then, like, taken Thorfinn, like, as a slave or something? I don't know. That realization on its own has me quite intrigued now. She's adorable. In her own way. So give me your hand now, because you may never have the chance again. Can you let me wake up first, please? But they're leaving early in the morning, so...
お弁当忘れてる。母ちゃん。あんたはもうどうしてそうそそっかしいのかね。ニシンの塩漬けはみんなにも分けなさいね。たくさん入れといたから。
Oh, it looks so comfortable.
あんた、母親に向かって。続きは帰って
I'm
から
the
話
girl I
す。
like.
待って
Come
た。ゆる
on.
ば。
That's really sweet, though.
今日出航か。
Especially because, yeah, he really doesn't know what'll happen.
ゆるば。
It's better than holding it in, right?
ちょっといいかな。
He's gonna get this a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
嘘当たってくれる？
I'm sorry, you're the only pretty girl in the village. What do you want from me?
土曜日にはちゃんと体を洗うのよ。坊や。
Saturday bathing. Still don't get what that's about.
張り切っとるな若衆たち。
Golden glory.
しかし全部で5人とはちょっと少なすぎやせんかの。トールズが5人でいいと言うとるんじゃ。
It depends. It's one of those 5 Thors.
仕方ないな。しかしの、やっとく船を。
Alright, they need sailors too, yeah.
そこはほれ、あの人のことだ。何か考えがあるんだろう。
Maybe he's got a bad feeling on it.
黙れタコ。てめえこそあの子に構うんじゃねえぞ。
Of course. Of course.
なめんな。そりゃこっちのセリフだぞ。
Gotta love the bond between the sailors. No way. Are we gonna get it both ways too?
気をつけてね。ああ。
Yilva's not the only pretty girl in the village. Come on.
お嬢ちゃん。あれが心配かね。
いいこと教えてあげようか。
I love that. I love his smile.
戦場に行かないの？
内緒内緒。
Is that why Thors didn't bring many people? Yeah. Naturally, right? They're gonna... Like the father figure, right? So he really is gonna try to do it alone. Alone, the only person in his village. Wait, what? I'm sorry, I don't rewind very much, but I need to read that again. I'm friends with the previous king of Norway. Okay, that's... Well, preview, I don't know how much that'll actually help you, given the situation there. But you are the merchant who goes there all the time, so... Maybe I shouldn't doubt you. Father figure. Take a shot every time I say father figure. But yeah, it really is the kind of person he is. He's such an incredible leader. Don't tell me he's already snuck on one of the boats. Leif, that was the merchant's name, that's right. At least regarding the village, he is, but I hope he isn't overestimating his abilities.
何あのオール。トルフィンのやつ、父上のお見送りもしないなんて。昨日怒られたの根に持ってんだわ、あいつ。
It's not like he needs such a big paddle, right? I'm pretty sure a normal paddle he'd keep up with the other 3. Or other 4, I guess, right? Because it's 5 people.
はい、伝えておきます。
Oh, she has beautiful eyes. Never quite noticed that before. I really don't like the sound of that Tano move. Yeah, you guys gotta get to work. Knew it was coming, but it's still funny to see. I love it. It's so comical. Truly like a comic, right? Alright, here we go. Oh, come on, you're tired already. Clearly you haven't done enough training being a sailor. Which I guess is hard to blame them for, because they were expected to go out to war, right? But I'm sure they trained for this. Again, because even if you don't seek it out, war's kind of an inevitability around here, so... Still, I guess no amount of training will get you ready for the real thing, right? Even if the real thing is just sailing across. And there he is. Yep. You can see the loading bar appearing over his head. Surprising absolutely everybody. Here's our Mansi. Oh, thanks for that. At least we don't have to see that. Sefu. Endless expanse of water. Seriously. Oh. How upset can you really be at that face? With shining eyes. He's your son after all. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, no shit. Don't tell me he's just not gonna kill Thors. Though I guess he has to get paid, so... PR. Yeah. But also... beat me to it. He doesn't want to lose too many of his soldiers. Or himself. What a grin. I don't like seeing the child's freer as the subtitles say. I want to get a look at this guy. Context saves the day, but god dang. I really like that Merc, though. I hope we get his name soon. We probably already have, but hope we see it again soon. Because I need to get his name like approximately 7 or 12 times before I remember it. Oh, I didn't even notice that he was going with them too. That's really reassuring. Really hope nothing bad happens to Leif. Do you have any idea how long he's been doing this, my guy? What a great way of phrasing. Jeez. About that. Yeah, how are you gonna answer this? You can't just say it's horrible and you've been tricked, right? Because... oh, feeding into that. That's so sweet. Tell me he's just gonna deflect, right? Yeah, good. Deflect. Oh, I love you so much, Thors. Yeah.
俺の初めての子なんだ。
Jeez.
赤ん坊ってのはみんなこんなに泣くもんなのか？
He was still a warrior back then. Yeah. Even.
次は男を産
Jeez.
め、ヘルガ。狩猟は
Hey,
王の子を
Thors
望みだ。
asks. Can't say no.
妻のヘルガは軍団の狩猟の娘なんだ。
The daughter of the leader
ラ
of
ン
the
ザンの後
army?
で病人のような顔色だった。
Jeez.
名前をつけてあげて。
適当につけておけ。俺は忙しい。
Not concerned at all about it.
トールズ殿、船が出ます。
お、今行く。
Completely different person. She can insist.
この子に
Yes, Helga, let's go.
その後15年一緒にいるが、
Okay, Helga just jumped up the rankings so many times. He just screamed up the rankings in my book.
ユルバという名は俺の母の名だ。
Oh, wow.
とっさに浮かんだ。
うん
今思えばあの時からだ。 俺はすっ
Anotokara.
かり戦場が怖くなっちまった。だから逃げ
So when you
た。
started to make connections, true
昔を
connections.
知る戦友たちは俺を罵るだろうな。
I think you saw that for yourself.
フェローが見えたぞ。
Oh, that didn't take too long. Darn seagulls. You might want to like cover your head just in case.
ここイングランドに着いたの？
全然不正解。
He is way too excited.
アイスランドとノルウェーの真ん中だ。
Little monsters are
ここで
adorable
一休みす
too.
ると旅が楽になる。
Yeah.
この先の入り江に村があるんだ。そこで飲み水を補給しよう。
And potentially run into a merchant. Sorry, not a merchant, a mercenary?
イングランドまでついてくるつもりか？
Obviously. I've got a weapon and everything. Not that he's gonna show them. Boom.
ほら、頑張れ。
Timing the, yeah. Imagine. Well, I can't imagine, really. Ooh.
どうした？
What's the matter,
おか
Wave?
しい。
何がだ？
Too quiet?
何がだろう。だが、前に来た時とは何かが。
Just intuition. Hmm.
そうか、家の数だ。
The
家の
number
数
of...
が減っている。
Ooh.
引き返そう、レイフさん。良くない気配がする。
Yeah, this is a really bad position to be in where you are.
マジ
Yeah.
ですか。
There's no end of bad things that could happen where you are. Yeah, of
おい、
course.
あいつら逆走してるぞ。
気づいたか。
へえ、やるの。
It's such an obvious funnel.
手強いかもしれねえ。
Great for defense.
近すぎるが仕方ね
Too
え。
great for defense in this
多少
case,
船が
right?
傷ついても構わん。やれ。
Yeah, sure enough. Just a hailstorm of rubble. Yeah, I don't think even you can deal with that, Thors. Barricade. How do you put the barricade so it gets in the middle too? That doesn't seem
入り江
feasible.
の出口が。
It feels like it would more just like pile like
よし
this.
少女。やつら袋のネズミだ。
They get it in the middle.
みんな、大丈夫か。
全員無事か。
They got a baseball master on their side.
矢が来るぞ。盾で頭を隠せ。レイフさん、そっちの被害は？
大丈夫だ。船も人もなんともない。
Just gonna go towards there.
この罠の本命は
Yeah.
入り江の奥だ。
奥。
And I've got nowhere to run. Ooh, that's not Leif. Is it our mercenary? Kinda hope so, but I also kinda hope not. And yeah, there he is. Well, let's get that dialogue you wanted. Unless he wanted to get to know you through more old school means. Okay, there are less houses, they use the materials, yeah, makes sense. Resources are valuable after all. Come on, do it for Ylva. Difference between the excitement of war and actually staring it down the barrel, right? You've got to play this smart. That look of simultaneous concern and faith. Like, I know you can handle this, right? So well conveyed. Okay, Thors, let's see what you really got for all this time.
身を守るためだけに使え。いいな。いざという時だけだぞ。
I don't know if you can see it on my face, but I am so stressed right now. I'm not even kidding. It's literally episode 3. It's been like a month, over a month since I've seen the last episode, and I'm so attached to these characters. Yeah. Huh? Don't tell me that's a power-up mushroom.
なんでそれっぽっちかよ。おい、アシュロット。ん？あれ、俺に任せてくんねえか。あれっぱかしに全員でかかっちゃ面白くねえ。業務を取るっていうのがどんなもんか、俺が試してやるよ。
Troll of Yom.
いいだろう。向こうもその気みたいだしね。
Tell me that was Thor's already. Hey guys, stay away from my villagers, please. Swing first, ask questions later. Oh my god, the music. It's not exciting, it's terrifying. What is that sound in the right ear? Yeah, that's the troll you you came here for. Is that going to be next episode? Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is, right? Unforgivable. It's such a great episode. Oh, so much in it. It's been a while since I've seen this CD too. It's so beautiful. I've also listened to the full version of it, and I mean, it's Aimer. I shouldn't have to tell you what I think about it, but it really is interesting how much of the CD is him as a kid. Bearing the torch. And of course the distant lands. Well, that was episode 3 of Vinland Saga. And what a great episode to come back to. I'm glad I didn't leave it off on this one, because that cliffhanger would have been quite painful to go through, though not in a cliffhanger in the sense that we don't know what's going to happen, of course, but it's simply in, you know, you know. So we go back to this conversation where Loki is bringing this merc who I'm pretty sure they mentioned their name after I asked them to mention the name again, and of course I've already forgotten it because it's kind of what I do. But they continue this conversation. Is it okay if I kill him? He's a hero to you guys. If you're a hero, I wouldn't have told you to kill him. He broke military law, he deserted, and for the last 15 years, he's had orders to be executed. I know your laws are strict, but come on, man, a decade and a half? Not that I'm complaining or saying I won't do it, but a job's a job. But if they're orders, then you guys should be doing it, right? You've been there. Why didn't you just kill him? And then Floki says the least suspicious thing any person has ever said in history. None of your business. Keep your nose out of it. Your job is to kill him, no more, no less. Which is the easiest way to tell somebody that you're hiding things, right? But Loki's smart, so I presume that he knows, he just doesn't care. I think what he underestimates, and as he soon sees with the spear, is that this person is no less clever than he is. Oh, that's a great foreshadowing. He turns over and looks at them. You must be quite confident, underestimating me. And immediately after the spear. Oopsies. Hey, be careful. You almost hit one of us. You klutz, you silly. And then he reiterates his offer. Do you accept or no? And then he just smiles again. Thank you very much. Thank you, master. By the way, who is he? He's not a warrior. Oh well. I'll have to figure it out myself. And then we reveal that it was more than an empty threat. Well, I suppose it wouldn't have been empty either way, but there was a lot of meaning in this. Because even without this guy, it would have been meaningful, right? Not only does it show their immense trust in each other, and presumably their implicit trust. I may be wrong about this, but it doesn't seem like they were speaking loud enough to be heard all the way outside. So I assume that this guy, whose name I definitely remember, Bjorn, I assume that Bjorn couldn't hear their conversation, so he didn't know exactly what they were doing. But just from looking at them, right, overseeing them, obviously, as presumably the lieutenant, he was keeping tabs on things, and things didn't seem to be going super well. Loki seemed to be getting a little bit big for his britches, so he decided to throw a spear in and remind him. On the other hand, though, this clearly isn't a coincidence, right? That's a large reason why Bjorn was complimented on the nice throw. So maybe it was discussed beforehand. Or maybe it's just something they both could tell was happening, that there was somebody, well, I suppose like Bjorn, Floki had somebody ready just in case. Not that Floki would have needed it, I'm sure, but never hurts, right? There's just so much in this, and just like the last episode, I made the same comment. There are so many inner workings behind these conversations, behind these interactions, these conflicts, that really makes them engaging. And just the more you think about it, the more you realize and the more you appreciate it, because it's really well written. He's not a man of empty words. No, he is not. So we get the departure, and poor Yulva just isn't given a chance to wake up because they're departing early in the morning. And we meet Ari. Are? I think they pronounce it. But it's sweet. It's really sweet. Wait, let me check real quick. Okay, yeah, they said Are. So I'm going to say Are. If it should be Ari, then tell me. But it sounds like, I think it's Finnish or maybe Swedish. And Japanese have very similar pronunciations, so I'm going to go with Are until corrected otherwise. But of course, as what always happens when you're trying to confess to the girl you like, Mother comes in and ruins everything. reminding you that you forgot lunch, because of course you did. Not now, Mom. It's so sweet. And it's also sweet of Yilfa to, after everyone's out of earshot, still wish them well. Hope they don't die, because she does care, right? Even though this is surely a pain, and she doesn't love them, clearly. She does care about them, right? Because this is a tight-knit village, and it's a village that's been raised and been taken care of and cultivated by Thors. So, of course it's this tight-knit, right? Of course all these people are trying to confess to Ylva, and this girl is trying to maybe not confess, but wish well to these people. They have all these interacting love triangles, love hexagons, I don't know. Because this is a really tight-knit place, right? We all care about each other. Sometimes romantic, sometimes not. But regardless, no one wants anyone to die here. Least of all Thors, as we see when he reveals, or when it's revealed what he's really planning on doing. But it's just really, really sweet to see. It's so sweet. I'm gonna stop by Norway on the way to Jomsburg. Leave the young men behind. Then Thors gets some sailors in Norway to make it to Jomsburg, and Leif is going to make sure that the young men get home. So yeah, Thors is basically going to be the only warrior going to Jomsburg. Insane, but entirely in character, right? This gag is the most predictable thing in the world, right? Not that I don't appreciate it. I mean, it's great. It's cliche because it works, but I can't believe the main character isn't going to see his father off. I wonder where he could possibly be. And then we have this interaction, which is part 1 of part 2 of why Helga is now in my top 5 characters, so I'll give you that list later. I won't see Thorfinn, so tell him that I will. It's the bond of a married couple, right? Of people who didn't start out close, as we see later, but have grown close, and have grown progressively close as time has gone on. And it's really interesting because there's a common misconception in the modern day that arranged marriages, not saying this is an arranged marriage, even though I presume it was, given Thor's and the daughter of the leader of the Vikings, or of, I don't remember if it was the Vikings, but of basically their army. Thor's and the daughter of the head, yeah, that's presumably an arranged marriage, to have kids that are really powerful. And yet, they clearly love each other, don't they? They didn't seem to very much in the beginning. But it's come with time. And what a lot of people don't realize is that this isn't necessarily an outlier. Now, not to say this is going to happen, and not to say this isn't in defense of arranged marriages. Not entirely, anyways. And especially it's not to say that all prearranged marriages go out this way. But I've seen multiple statistics, not just now, but over history, that the least amount of divorces are from prearranged marriages, and that these marriages that were not born from choice, from abundance, oftentimes are the happiest, or at least claim to be the happiest. And that's about as objective of a measurement as we're going to get, right? About whether a couple's happy, just asking them themselves. So there's this really interesting thing where in the modern culture, we kind of look down on it, right? Because it feels wrong. Like, and to a large degree, it is wrong, because historically, at the very least, prearranged marriages are more about, oh, I'm going to marry my daughter off to you. It's a bit objectifying, right? Regardless, the point is that there's a lot of this negative connotation, but there isn't as much appreciation for how things actually turn out often. Sure, the divorce may just be a case if they can't because of culture, but the fact they actually report being happier, and largely happier than the alternative, than what we have in the free world, it speaks to not just humans' ability to survive through any environment at all, and how adaptive we are, but really how people desire connection, and they find it more often than not in places they don't expect it to. They don't expect to. Because people are famously not very good at knowing what they want, right? We're really good at thinking we know what we want, but we rarely ever actually hit that nail on the head. Again, this is not me saying that all prearranged marriages end up happy and that all chosen marriages end up poorly. Far from it. I'm presenting this more as a case in point that there's something powerful and inexplicable about not getting what you want, and in doing so, getting what you couldn't, getting more than you could have ever wanted, I should say. Thors and Helga didn't really get along that well. We don't know really from Helga's perspective what she thought about Thors, but Thors didn't really care for her. And there's no reason that having to name his daughter, having Helga get angry at him, or just leaving the battlefield would make him fall in love with her as much as he clearly has. But he clearly has. And she clearly loves him too. Because if you spend enough time with somebody, it's hard not to get attached, right? Not to say that, again, you could just marry anyone and eventually it'll work out, but again, there's something powerful about these two people meeting under certain circumstances, and it speaks a lot to them as well, but just making things work and finding true happiness. And it's just an interesting thought experiment, I suppose, and it's also just really beautiful to see. It goes directly against the ideas of freedom and of individuality and of your choice, right? Making your choice about who you marry, who you live your life with. But there's a beauty in that incongruence, I suppose. So they depart, and no amount of training can get you ready for the actual open sea. And then, sure enough, Thorfinn comes out. Thors gets ready to scold him as he should, as he deserves, but who can stay mad at this face? So precious. It's really so precious. He is my son. This job is suspicious, so we return back to him. Loki's hiding too many secrets. He's obviously lying about the execution order. It's obviously an execution. And regardless of why he's doing it, there's clearly more to it than he's saying. Of course, it could always simply be that he doesn't want to lose too many of his men, as we see at the end of the episode. Why am I pausing on here? Hold on one sec. I think that prophecy is not even going to be self-fulfilled. I think it's just fulfilling itself. Let me rephrase. There's always something that gives me chills about an expression like this, with a line like this, spoken by a guy like this. It just... It's like I said in the episode, the people who smile the most are oftentimes the one you should fear the most. Not as a blanket statement, of course, but especially when it comes to matters of warfare, when it comes to matters of maybe business, they're the ones you don't want to get on the bad side of. Because that smile is not a privilege, it's earned. It's comfortably carried. So, we get... I really like this interaction as well, where Are talks to, hopefully his father-in-law, future father-in-law. Are asks Thors to tell him some stories about the battlefield. Of course, Are being one of the youths who is more than excited to, as he is about to say, lop off some general's head and gain that glory, right? Get to Valhalla, finally fulfill the promise of their whole lives, of their training, of their culture. But on the receiving end is the greatest inspiration for war and also the strongest advocate of peace. The person who has seen war and thus denounces it harder than anyone else. And Thors is placed in an uncomfortable and difficult position here. Does he tell the truth? tell him that I have stories, but none of them are good, that you shouldn't desire war, that you're wrong for having those starry eyes at something that's so horrible. Well, if he does that, then in a best case scenario, morale is lost. Are is disillusioned and he's upset. That's the best case scenario. He may just reject it, like Thorfinn did when he learned about his ancestors who ran from Norway. Are may just not believe it, or he may lose faith in Thors, which is very unlikely, especially as his future father-in-law. But what I'm saying is that there's no really good outcome here, right? Of saying what he wants to say, of telling Are that you don't actually want this, and it's not going to be like you think. Just like the sailing trip, your training has not and cannot prepare you for reality. But on the other hand, he can't just play along with it and lie, right? He can't just say, oh, I have these crazy stories. Oh, I'm going to feed into it. I'm going to make you happy. I'm going to focus on morale. There are benefits to it, but it's also going directly against his character, against his beliefs, and against what he thinks is best for Are, right? And all the youths. So, what does he do? He can't encourage it, he can't denounce it, but proving how truly great of a leader he is, he deflects. When paths A and paths B don't work, let me find path C. And he cleverly mentions being in the army as well to give Are that sense of satisfaction of talking about the war a little bit, but bringing up the crush and that she likes strong men without saying war is good is so great. It's such a clever misdirection. I don't like using that word, but for lack of a better term, it's such a clever rerouting of the conversation. And not only that, he doesn't just use it to like talk about, oh, you must really like her, oh, this is how you're gonna like her, and say this pointless thing. He also used this as a chance to reflect on himself, and in doing so, he wraps back around, doesn't he? So Thors decides to tell Are about this story, about when Ylva, Are's love interest, was born. But not just as a full side story to distract him. He uses this talk and about this conversation, which we're definitely getting into in a second, don't worry. I'll get to there in a minute. But in the context of this conversation, the point is that he's using this conversation, this talk about the love interest of the person he's talking to, in order to more subtly and more tactfully bring up the idea that war is not all it's chopped up to be. And I think he finds the best outcome. God is certainly not pleased by this story and hearing about how Thors is afraid of battle and how he feels guilt with his comrades for deserting them. But he wraps it up in this package of talking about Ylva and talking about Helga and talking about this forming of family, of these bonds, in a way that's really hard to dismiss or reject, right? In Otto's position, how are you supposed to say, oh, this can't be true, or you're not the warrior I thought, oh, you're talking bad about war, you must be the enemy, or you must be wrong? How do you say any of that when it's all wrapped up in the love of a parent, of a husband, both of which not only are I wish to be, but the child, the aforementioned child, is the person he aspires to be with. This emotional connection that makes this, I suppose, dropping of bad news, this telling of something somebody doesn't, telling of something somebody does not want to hear, goodness, in such a way that he can do nothing but accept it, right? That's so brilliant. It's so powerful and just speaks volumes about not just Thors' character, but Helga's. So let's get into that now. He talks about the moment that Ylva was born, and his mannerisms, his way of speaking, the way he's holding the baby, speak to a completely different Thors, of course, because this was 15 years ago, right? Give me a boy next. Child wants a boy. He's just so direct, right? So cold, so distant, straight to the point. He's a warrior. A warrior so famous he's regaled as the Troll of Yoms. And here we learn that Helga's the daughter of the leader of the army. Oh, that's a really subtle detail I didn't notice or let alone comment on when I first read it. The fact that in this retelling, this narration, Thors talks about how Helga looked pale, exhausted, right? As you would be from any birth, but especially from one that was difficult. That's such a beautiful detail to include here, because it doesn't really build into anything, right? There's no point that he's getting to with her looking pale. And most of all, it's not something that he should have noticed, given the kind of person he was, right? Given the mindset that he had back then when he saw this. It's reminding me again of Mary Che with Endeavor, remembering Day's favorite flowers that she only mentioned once, when for all intents and purposes he shouldn't have. Why does he remember that Helga looked pale? Now, from a narrative standpoint, like from a meta-narrative standpoint, it's most likely to contrast her getting angry, right, and her taking her stand. It shows how strong Helga is and how perfect of a match those two really are. Perhaps she, like daughter, likes father, leader of the army. But the fact that he remembers it is one thing, when he really shouldn't. The fact that he mentions it shows that he remembers it. So he noticed it, he remembered it, and he cares about it. He cares about it enough to bring it up here in this retelling without really an end goal. Perhaps partially because, yes, he's talking about this moment of trying to incite sympathy, right? He's trying to talk about how he got afraid of battle and how this changed. How his mindset towards battle changed. I should be more specific there. I don't really think this line was for Are, though. I think this was for him. I think as he looks back on this, he can't not think about this because of how much he loves her. Because of regret he probably feels about how he treated her, how he acted towards her. So I think this line is really more to himself than anything. Showing that he noticed, that he remembers, that he cares. And all of this went completely over my head when I was first watching it. That's why I love doing these post-episode things, not just to really talk about things, but because of things I might not notice. I'm busy, about to go to Norway. Name her yourself. Give this child a name. And here we get to the part that I actually wanted to talk about. Why I respect Helga so much, and it's going to be a little bit of shorter talk because I think it speaks for itself, but it deserves note anyways. There are so many things that make this the moment that shoots Helga up in my character rankings of the story of the show. As we just mentioned before, she was pale, right? It was a difficult birth. She's tired. She's literally in bed, bedridden, and yet she makes a stand. But who does she make this stand against? The Troll of Yoms? Thors? That takes balls. I'll just say it. Ironically. And it shows that she's not only strong mentally for enduring this birth, she's strong emotionally, right? She is able to conquer what is undoubtedly fear that of what he may do to her, potentially, or the ramifications of speaking so resolutely. And not to mention that this is way back in the 10th century, right? I won't, maybe I'm speaking too much from the cultures I know, but most cultures at the time, most cultures from most times, tend to look down on women a good bit and don't really appreciate it when they speak up. Nordic cultures may be an exception, but I somehow doubt that. Someone feel free to correct me in the comments, but until corrected, I will take the stand that not only is she tired from a difficult birth, she is speaking up to a legendary warrior, and she's doing so as a woman and in defense of her child, which is the least surprising, but no less heartening and no less beautiful. Not just because of her maternal love, but what it does to Thors. That's the part that I really love about this. The fact that Thors began to really care for this family, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I've been with her for 15 years, but that's the only time I've ever seen her mad. Also, I think I misread that. I thought that said I'd been, so I was wondering if they'd been together for 30 years, which seemed insane to me. Not impossible, but insane. But I've been with her for 15 years, so this isn't 15 years ago per se. It might be, whoever, for as far as I know, but they've been together for 15 years. Aside, the fact that she gets mad here and she takes her stand, I think to a degree this kind of snaps some gears into place and kind of is a reality check in a sense for Thors, because it shows that these are not just objects, right? This is not just the wife to make more kids for the leader. This is a person creating another person with you. I think this is the moment he really gets to see family bonds and gets to experience the beauty for it for himself, right? Not something you can be told about. So he names his daughter after his mother, classic, and talks about how that's when he started to care. There's just something so beautiful about somebody who truly cares about something talking to somebody who really doesn't. And that passion being contagious. It's bittersweet when it is a father and a mother having a child, and that's the thing one of them is passionate about. But with the abilities of hindsight that we have, this being a reflection, the bitter kind of fades away a little bit because we know this is when things change. And I guess that's, again, it's in hindsight that Helga's true might or true power shines. The fact that she was able to convince someone like Thors to completely shift or to start completely shifting from war to love, to try to avoid getting too sappy with things. I mean, that's just how it is, right? That's what happened. He chose love over war. And it was because of Helga taking a stand. This person who could not fight back, this person who was weak from the experience, this person who was given to him, completely changed his life. If that isn't beautiful, then what is? It's such a great moment. I think it's my favorite moment of the episode. Potentially my favorite moment of the show so far. And as we move into a much more action-packed and tense part of the episode, it feels very apropos for me to mention that it figures that my favorite moments from the show are the peaceful moments rather than the actual conflicts, right? Sure enough, in a show like this. And that's not to say that's coincidental, right? I'm sure that's intentional. I'm sure that the author put more attention, I should say, into the moments of peace, the moment that Thors really values, and the moments that the author values. over these moments of conflict. That's not to say that these moments were ignored or were not really, were kind of neglected, but that extra love and that assurance that the audience really feels and cares about these things that the author wants us to care about, right? Sorry, I don't have their name yet. It'll take a while. I've already talked about names. But it's showing your message not just through dialogue, not just through actions, but through how you craft the story, right? If you want your story to be a story glorifying war, if you want your story to be propaganda, then yeah, enhance the war, minimize the moments in between, the peace. And if you want the opposite, do the opposite. Here's a perfect example, right? This is a story about not making light, or largely about not making light of war, about how this culture of battle, for the sake of reaching afterlife where you get the most glorious battle, isn't necessarily an ideal we should be pursuing. Now, I know it's a stretch to say this is a part the story is about. Maybe it's just this first part. Maybe it's just Thor's. But it seems to me the story is very intent on making this claim. Maybe not the exact wording I used, but with the idea of you have no enemies, stop saying kill so lightly. It's very clear what this is about. Less clear what the mushroom's about, but I guess we'll see. Mushrooms have many properties that some may describe as unusual. Like Thor just crashes down. And again, I don't want to say that this isn't fun and this isn't exciting and this isn't great, because it is. It's perfect. It's the expressions, everything about it. It's just the one where he's just like, oh shoot, what have I gotten myself into? Honestly, just smiles knowingly in the background. It's perfect, right? It's really fun. But the fact that the author worked so hard to make us treasure the moments that aren't filled with this conflict, the moments where a child is born, the moments where a child looks out over the ocean with eyes twinkling. There's a lot to be said about that. A lot that I have said, so I won't talk your ears off repeating myself. And a lot more than I can say in this moment as I've just watched the episode, which is the beauty and also the biggest downside of not really taking a lot of time to put my thoughts together, and certainly not writing a script for these. In case you didn't know, this is just how I do it. I'm talking about inexplicable beauty. I love the beauty of just going through this episode with it fresh in my head and just talking off the cuff. I really value that, and I hope you do too. If you do value that, then go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, to get notified as soon as the next one comes out. Or if you're interested in any of the other things I'm watching, go ahead and check those out. If it would really help me out if you enjoyed it, to leave a like, and also to press that hype button. I think it's like next to the comments if you're on mobile. Apparently it's really good for the algorithm, so it would I would really appreciate that. And of course, I already mentioned leaving comments, blah blah blah, YouTube housekeeping. Most important thing is that you're here and you're watching this and you heard my thoughts and you're hopefully giving your own. So thank you for all, if not most of that. And until the next one, have a lovely rest of your day.